You're listening to the Spirit Podcast.
Hi, friends, and welcome to The Spirit. I'm Beck.
And I'm Steph.
Hey, Steph.
Hey, Becky.
So today's show is about
Oddities.
And oddities are an odd or remarkable, unusual person, thing, or event.
Yeah, have you ever gone to the state fair and seen the mermaid baby?
I haven't. I don't think I've seen the mermaid baby.
Yeah, I don't know how they fashioned her together. I'm pretty sure out of some like animal skin and made like a shape, or maybe she was paper mache with animal skin.
Oh, could have been.
She looked like a sea creature.
Oh, really?
It was weird looking, but they had all different stuff in there. I can't remember everything, but
I don't think I ever went into those freak show tents.
yeah, they cost money, which was always an aggravation to a parent, even if it's like $1.
Yeah, that's true.
They're always like, I don't have the money.
Or you choose. You want to go on the merry-go-round or you want to go see the freaks?
I want to see the freaks, man.
Have you ever had any odd events in your life take place or met any odd people, seen any odd things?
Yeah, one time, this was really a weird thing that happened. I was with our friend Amy, and our friend Amy, she actually passed away back in 2006, was it?
7.
7, okay. You know, we spent a lot of time hanging out in the 90s, and she really liked going to this coffee shop up at the university. So we went together, and coffee shops are like kind of like couches all put together, and you have to sometimes share space with somebody that you've never met.
Kind of like the Cafe and Friends.
Yeah, okay.
Central Perk, right? Kind of like that?
Yeah, I guess so. And but this hippie-ish older gentleman was in there, and he was very out there, and he would not stop talking to me and Amy. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I've been living in the cemetery. I mean, he was going on and on to the point where Amy left me. She left me.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have stuck around listening to that garbage.
I know. And he was saying, he's like, hey, I got a great idea.
Oh, my God, what is this?
He's like, why don't we go to the cemetery where I've been sleeping?
Oh,
because I have a pizza in one of the mausoleums that I've been storing for myself, and we'll throw koosh balls at each other naked.
What?
And I was like, oh my God.
Are you for real? This is for real.
This happened. And then he's like, and it was close to my birthday, and he asked me, like, when's your birthday? I'm like, January 3rd. And right when I said that, sparks came out of the ceiling. Okay. Because that was the same. He goes, that's my birthday. We had the same birthdays.
And literal sparks.
There was like either a heater or something up in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And sparks flew out of there. And he thought it was a sign that now we got to go throw koosh balls at each other. And I was like, this lasted for I must have talked to him for like an hour. He gave me a copy of a book that he wrote.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest bunch of nonsense I've ever seen. And it wasn't a published book. It was him typing stuff out. Okay. So you got to read my book. To this day, I don't know what he was talking about. It was like if you were on like 12 hits of LSD and wrote it.
That is the most amazing story.
Yeah, the fact that our birthdays matched, the ceiling, all of a sudden sparks just came out of this thing in the ceiling when he was like, that's my birthday. And Amy's just like rolling her eyes like, get out of there.
Well, Amy used to, when she'd go under streetlights, they'd go out.
Oh, I know. I remember that.
Yeah, she'd go, watch this. She'd walk along the street and the streetlights would just go out.
I know. Yeah,
it never did that to me.
No, it didn't do it to me either. And she would just go underneath there and it was just zoop and it was gone.
I was mowing the lawn once. To me, this is an oddity. And I was on a riding lawnmower and I had 2 trees, and tied to those 2 trees was a dog line runner. You know, those heavy duty dog line runners.
Yeah.
And somehow, when I drove parallel to the dog line, my hoop earring, it was a horseshoe earring, somehow latched on that as I'm driving, like, I don't know, 6 miles an hour or something. Mm-hmm. It just tore my ear wide open. Blood everywhere. And then, you know.
What did that feel like?
It hurt.
What are the chances that something that can happen?
Yeah, that's the other weird thing was, it's an oddity to me, was driving across the country with my mom, coming back from Portland, Oregon to New York State. maybe Iowa. I look up in the sky and I see writing happening in smoke, but this wasn't like one of those flyover planes that writes.
Yeah.
You ever seen those? I've never seen them in real life, but on television.
Skywriters?
Yeah, it wasn't a skywriter. It almost looked like a firework. Somehow this firework was in the middle of a day, in the middle of 2012, in the middle of a drought.
Okay.
Was doing smoke numbers and letters right above this cornfield, which could have caught on fire if it was a firework. So I have no idea what the hell it was. I took pictures of it. I had pictures of it.
Did it say anything? Like, did you make out the
Just
letters?
numbers and letters. Nothing that made sense. It was like coding.
Maybe the farmer's son was getting into the airplane, got into like the crop duster, and was like, "I'm gonna have some fun today."
But it wasn't a plane. It was small. It was like if you lit off a bottle rocket.
Did they have drones back then?
In 2012, yeah, but I don't know why they would hook smoke to drones over the middle of nowhere in a field in the middle of nowhere with no one around in a drought and just smoke out little letters and stuff in the sky.
Well, now we know it's the government then.
It's the Illuminati.
It's the Illuminati.
Let's talk about some oddities that have been documented.
Yes.
The most popular, which a friend of mine used to be horrified by, it was her worst nightmare, and she would always say over and over, "I hope this doesn't happen to me."
Oh, really? Did it happen to her eventually?
No. It
Okay,
was
that's
spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, yes. No, that was one of my... I don't know if we saw that on one of the shows back then, like Unsolved Mysteries. They might have featured it. Mm-hmm. But the first time I learned about that, I was always afraid that was going to happen to
You
me.
had
I
an
thought
irrational fear of spontaneous.
Oh, yes. Like, I would think about it, and definitely I was like, I don't ever want this to happen. How do I stop this? It just seems like it's just going to happen.
I think the most recent death linked to SHC, or spontaneous human combustion, was that of Michael Faraday, 76 years old, who died in his home in Galway, Ireland in December of 2010.
Oh, wow. So that's...
The last recorded case.
Do you know the first one?
Fewer than 150 cases of spontaneous human combustion have ever been reported over the last 2,000 years. So we're talking 2,000 years ago.
Wow. When I was trying to research it, it's been around for a while.
Yeah, a while. 2,000 years.
Now, I've seen on a video a long time ago, someone who claimed that it started happening to them. The wife was right next to her husband, and the husband was experiencing it. She goes, I saw the smoke coming off of him, and they panicked because that's what they thought. They didn't know what was happening. But then later, when they heard about spontaneous human combustion, they really believe that's what was happening. He was getting hot. And he said there was a smoke coming off of him, and he wasn't smoking a cigarette or anything.
Right.
He just felt internally really hot.
But where was the smoke coming from? Do we know? Like outside of his body?
It was coming off his body.
Oh, off his body. Like
I can't remember.
Roasting.
Yeah, like It stopped, and he never died from it. So it was like a person, I think, that survived maybe something that had started that looked like it was going to end up that way, but it stopped.
Has there been anything to prove this
or
disprove this?
The only thing that they've done is they took a pig and they lit the pig on fire in a certain... I don't know how they lit the pig on fire.
That's horrible.
But it was already dead. And it kind of... smoldered in the same way that there was some pieces of it left. Nothing else burned on fire. And the theory is that the body fat becomes like wax in a candle, and you are the wick in a way. And that's the only thing they can attribute it to. Unfortunately, they used to blame these people as being alcoholics because they assumed that alcohol was making it easier for the... like alcohol in their body was making it easier for the fire to burn. But scientists say that no, that wouldn't happen. Okay. So imagine all these poor people that died. Their families get this label like... He died because he was a drinker.
Drinking a bottle of whiskey and caught on fire.
But they do think probably they're smokers, or they got a fire going and a spark hits them. But I
feel like there's been cases where someone's sitting in a chair smoking, and yet everything's burned but the cigarette.
That's the weird phenomena about it, is that the person's all burned up, except like the legs are left, like the lower part of the legs, and they're intact. They look like fresh legs. There's a little weird burn spot maybe on the floor. But nothing, I mean, you would think there's no bones left. All right.
Right.
The heat that it takes to burn bones is a lot of heat to just turn them into ash.
Right. And why wouldn't the furniture be scored?
Yes. And there's nothing else in the house. They said they noticed like a weird oily soot on the walls. But you think if with that amount of heat contained in a house, that it's got to catch other things on fire. It just doesn't seem that that's possible, that it wouldn't do that, especially with that high of heat to actually burn bones. So it's really strange. It's odd. And no one has given, I think, a sufficient answer for it. And I think they would need to do more testing maybe, but who would care about that anyways? If it was happening a lot, I think we would have more studies done.
Well, I think they fluctuate the explanations from religious to scientific.
Okay.
Some believers of human combustion blame holistic forces with an intent to punish, and usually, like you had said, alcoholics or people driven by gluttony. Others claim that it's the movement of vital humors on blood particles within the body, and that can spark an involuntary fire. And then there's another range of explanations like flammable phosphates within the body, gastrointestinal gases that interact poorly when released from an individual, the wick and candle effect you spoke about, human fat, which seeps into the individual's clothing or on the bed sheets, and it allows to act as a human wick. Non-believers point to obviously a homicide, like an assailant is setting fire to the person.
And that could be too. There could be cases where...
It could be.
But it doesn't make any sense that nothing else is burned. That's just the weird part to me.
Have you ever heard any theories that maybe it could be something alien?
Laser beams.
I mean, wouldn't that make sense, though?
I don't know. I mean, think of this. Do you ever watch any videos about Chinese practitioners of like qi or ki or whatever they call it?
Chi.
There's this one guy I saw. I think it's some English people that wanted to do a documentary with him. He could start fires in his hands. Like he could create so much heat with his hands, he could light stuff on fire. And now maybe someone like James Randi would look at that and be like, that's a trick. But they tested him on different things and they really believed he could do that. And that qi, you can create energy and actually experience heat in your body.
Right.
Now he could focus it into the hands. Well, what if this person, I'm thinking, had a moment like that and it got out of control? I don't know. I mean, not that they're practicing, but maybe something in their body's unbalanced or something's happening that it triggered the chi response. I don't know. It's my own weird little theory. Sorry.
Well, the earth is a mysterious place.
It is, yeah.
And humans are kind of mysterious at times. So
I
I
think
have no idea. It is fascinating. I don't think I have an irrational fear of it. Do you still have an irrational fear of it?
No, I think because I was a child, it seemed like mindset at the time. Just another thing to be scared of. But I am afraid of house fires, though. I am a weird,
They're
stove
scary.
checker. I
Yeah.
check the stove at least 3 or 4 times at night. It's like, okay, off, 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 off. This is unplugged. Doors locked. Then I bless the wall when I go to sleep. I'm like, please, God.
Fires, it's so destructive. It's so...
Well, I know where I live, I'd have to carry my mom. I don't
like
know.
a fireman, you'd have to throw her over your shoulder. And
I know my mom's disabled and I help her stay with her. And I'm like, Mom, if there's a fire here, you're screwed. I'm going to have to literally throw you on my back and
buggy out.
fall down the stairs.
Yeah. I think you could do it. You'd be pumped up with a lot of...
Adrenaline.
yeah. Have you ever heard of the dancing plague?
No.
It's also known as Saint Vitus' dance. Choromania was a truly bizarre medieval phenomenon from Central Europe. It involved spontaneous and continuous dancing by crowds of people until they collapsed through exhaustion or worse, died.
That's really weird. It reminds me of those stories we've heard recently about girls that can't stop coughing or twitching or sneezing. There's weird things that would happen in a school. Like, I'd be like,
Oh, that was catchy?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they would all be doing it and like, I can't stop, or laughing, or it's been in the news several times, things like that.
But I've never heard of the Choromania until recently. And then that was regularly reported by eyewitnesses and was a genuine concern for authorities. It was contagious. In June of 1374, one of the most widest outbreaks began in Germany before spreading to other places such as Cologne, Flanders, and later Italy. There are still outbreaks more than a century later. Strasbourg in July 1518, a woman named Frau Trophia began dancing in the street, and within 4 days, 33 others had joined her. And within a month, that's how long they went, there was 400. Many of them suffered heart attacks and died.
That's crazy.
And no autopsies were carried out. And because medical science of the day could hardly be described as advanced, the only guesses could be made as to the causes. Perhaps it was some kind of skin infection or muscular inflammation leading to spasms. And at the time, people believed that the dancing was a curse brought on by Saint Vitus, who, I don't know if I'm saying right, Vitus, V-I-T-U-S, Vitus?
Vitus. I don't know.
Who was, according to Christian legend, a Christian saint from Sicily. So they responded by praying and making pilgrimages to places dedicated to Vitus.
They twitch all the way there and dance all the way there.
Well, there was some victims that recovered,
Okay.
and they perceived that connection between the illness and the saint.
It's weird.
I mean, I've heard of dance contests where they
Yeah.
they have you dance all night and dance all day, and whoever can last the longest wins.
Yeah. You know, it makes you wonder if it's more like mental, like someone thinks it's catchy and then they start reacting the same way because they're out of their fear. Like maybe fear is bringing, I don't know.
Maybe it is some sort of weird plague.
Or it's fungus, like Children of the Corn. Did you see Children of the Corn Part 2?
No.
It ended up being a fungus that spread, and that's how
Oh.
the corn made fungus, and that was blowing through the air. That was the cause of the whole thing.
Let's move on.
So a few years ago in Siberia, they were reporting ginormous holes in the ground. I don't know how they find them. I think a plane flew over it.
It was probably doing some sort of surveying.
And these are really, really big.
Big holes.
Something that you don't want to...
We're talking Grand Canyon type
No,
big,
not
or
Grand Canyon, but like...
just big craters?
They're not putting the size of them, but they're big. Like this one. Look at that.
Okay, that's pretty damn big.
And they're deep.
Well, how would you describe that?
I would say it's like a deep tunnel.
Yeah, and it looks about 40 feet wide.
Yeah,
Maybe even bigger.
Yeah, one image we're looking at now, they look very large. Like you can see the person, he looks very small.
Like if he fell in.
Oh, you would die. I think they're very deep. They don't have the depth listed on here or the circumference of the circle of the hole, but they didn't know where they were coming from when they
weird.
first
It's
saw
like a
them.
sinkhole type of deal, right?
Yeah, and this is what the scientists believe. They can't really prove it, but basically they said as the average temperature in the region rises, a permafrost layer ceases to be as robust as before, and in certain places it gives in to the pressure from within the earth. The surface of the earth deforms as a hill is formed under pressure from below, and then a suddenly provoked blast releases great energy that destroys the layer.
It's just so weird that it would just somehow blast out.
Well, they think it's like also methane too, so it's basically giant earth farts.
Okay. It's kind of like aliens and weather balloons, or seeing UFOs and weather balloons, or the hum. You've heard of the hum.
Yes, that one scares me.
And that one to me is just unreal. You cannot say that that's seismic activity. There's no way. It's heard in weird random places.
Like our microphone just before.
Yeah, we had the hum. I don't think that everything can be explained by science, and yet we're just so quick to say, oh yeah, that's scientifically explained, so it is what it is there.
Yeah, and there's quite a few of them. It's not like it's just one. And I know Siberia, I mean, that's just an ice hell. It's pretty cold there.
Yeah.
I don't know what their summers are like, but I know their winters are very severe. So that's one place that I find it's very strange. They have a bunch of these. And
Siberia's strange anyway. I wouldn't want to go there.
no, never.
Did you hear about the maniac squirrels that are terrorizing Queens neighborhoods?
The in Queens, New York?
Yeah, in Queens,
no,
New
I
York.
didn't hear that.
The squirrels have been attacking residents at Rego Park for weeks now. The last assault finally drew blood.
Wow.
Anytime there's a story about small furry animals going after a person, the answer is usually rabies, right? Mm-hmm. But what else could make a creature take on someone so much bigger who has opposable thumbs?
I think they gave them too many like sweet treats and carbs, and they were addicted. They want more.
Maybe the squirrels are sick of their place on the food chain and they're going after the people now. But they've been actually attacking people for weeks at this point, and this was actually in December this started. They've been rushing and pouncing outside several homes, but the neighborhood so far has been able to shoo most of them. There was one person that didn't survive the fight unscathed. Blood covers the snow in the front of her New York home. Her hand sustained many puncture wounds from the little guy. She was quoted, "We were wrestling in the snow."
Just like picture her like rolling around with
They're right.
a little tiny squirrel.
And
Like
there's blood everywhere, and my fingers are getting chewed, and it won't let go, she told the Associated Press. Eventually, it just stopped, and there I was, a big, bloody mess. The squirrels have also attacked her neighbors. and anyone that was walking by the home, and they jump on their backs and they assault them.
They have really sharp. I actually had a squirrel crawl on me.
Yeah.
It was actually at a petting zoo or a feeding zoo. You know, the
Yeah.
Utica zoos like that.
Okay.
So they have, at Utica Zoo, they have a lot of animals you can feed, like herds of deer that they have there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some wild animals like squirrels that benefit from like all the little cups of feed that you give. The stuff gets scattered and they like to gather that up. So they're a little bit friendly in the sense that they'll go right up to you. So I saw one go into this little tree and I stuck my foot at the base of the tree and he crawled up my leg real fast. And I had shorts on and they were the sharpest nails that I've ever experienced. It was worse than a cat.
They scare me. Squirrels scare me. I used to throw peanuts and shit out the front of the front porch before I'd go to school just to get by the squirrels because
you were scared of them.
Because they would hunt me. Like, I've been through this, except they didn't fully jump on me and attack me, but it would prevent me from going to school. There would be one squirrel in particular that would bully me, and I would have to go find peanut butter and fling it out on the spoon, just like whoosh, to run past them to get to school.
I had that same issue, but it was with a bird. I used to have to go to summer school and when I was like in the 4th grade, and one of our neighbors' houses that was like halfway to the school had like a swallow's nest. Like,
oh, they're mean little bastards.
And every day I go to school, he would swoop down and attack my head.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd run home crying, terrified, and I would make my sister come with me and I would walk all the way on the other side of the road and I'd start freaking out if I'd see the bird, like, there he is.
I've seen that happen a lot, too, to people that go by the swallows' nests. Even on bicycles or anything. I had swallows attack me. I wouldn't say attack me. They were coming at my head.
They dive bomb you.
They dive bomb me when I was mowing the lawn. So it was like, stay away from our bushes. And I was like, I really need to mow, so you need to chill. But then after a while, I remember jumping off the mower and running. And then my cousin pulled into the driveway and was laughing hysterically because she saw them attacking me. Apparently, squirrels rarely get rabies, and even less frequently they transmit it to people, so that's worth noting. While you're deciding which wild animals to interact with, feral cats are amongst the most significant sources of rabies transmission to people, just for an FYI.
Why would they treat someone for rabies? Well, because they don't really know if the animal
she got
has it.
bit, yeah, and mauled.
Did they still do rabies? Like, what was the nightmarish treatment for rabies? Like tons of needles in your stomach or something?
I don't know. I think it was horrible. I think having rabies is horrible.
It sounds horrible.
It's terrible. I wouldn't want to go through that. Yeah, there was no resolve for the squirrel issue. Sorry to leave our listeners hanging.
Yeah, the squirrels will continue to attack. We'll get back to you once we have new information.
Next Friday at 11, we'll be reporting on the squirrels.
So our next subject are the 5 places on Earth where gravity doesn't work.
I don't know what that means, doesn't work. How does gravity not work?
Where things should go down like gravity pulls things down.
Yeah.
They do the opposite.
So you float?
I don't think that the person just starts floating.
Because I want to go there.
I would love that.
I would too.
I really want to do the jetpack thing. That's how I want to fly.
What about that thing that they have in some centers where you can skydive, but
and that like tunnel
a fan blows you up?
I would do that.
Yeah, me too.
It's better than jumping off of an airplane and not knowing if your parachute's going to open.
Safer.
Yeah, a little bit safer.
So, okay, there's no gravity. How do they know this? They throw something in the air?
Well, you can witness it. You can see it.
Okay.
So I'll just go through the 5 that they
Sure.
have. Okay. So the first one is an inverted waterfall. So the water doesn't fall, it goes back up.
That's insane.
Located in the Republic of Chile, the waterfall flow appears to flow upward. But upon closer look, you'll realize that the phenomenon can be explained by the extremely strong gusts of wind blowing up from underneath. And why would they claim that?
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So let's forget about that one.
Okay.
That
one's garbage.
They've taken away the joy of mystery. Okay. Mount Aragats in western Armenia, Sitting about 30 kilometers from the border of Turkey, this mountain also defies all known physics, with a river flowing uphill and even cars rolling uphill on their own.
Wow. Now I've heard of this. I've heard of cars rolling uphill in America, even
Yeah.
certain areas.
It's the vortexes.
I mean, paranormal investigators claim it's like little ghost children and stuff pushing them, but
That's really scary.
well, there's handprints apparently on some of the cars of little kids. But I mean, this is a mountain with things flowing backwards. This is bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's one in Canada
Mm-hmm.
called Magnetic Hill. It says in the Canadian province of New Brunswick, cars are also known to roll uphill on their own. There is some place that's out, is it in Oregon, where there's a house or some place that they claim gravity doesn't work, but I think those are more illusions.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that the inventor of Pringles can is now buried in one?
No.
1966, Frederick Bauer.
His name isn't Pringles?
Frederick Pringles developed the ingenious idea for Procter & Gamble to uniformly stack chips inside of a can instead of tossing them into a bag. He was so proud of his invention that he literally wanted to take it to the grave.
That's pretty cool. The guy that made the Italian coffee machine that he invented, that everyone still uses today and he invented a long time ago, he put his ashes in the coffee pot.
What did he do with the coffee pot?
They probably
Did they
buried
brew it?
Ugh.
They brew it up and have a nice cup of joe, and that's where we get cup of joe from?
Pretty nasty espresso shot.
How about children of identical twins are genetically siblings, not cousins?
Wait, children?
Yeah. Children of identical twins. So if you had an identical twin
Yeah.
and you both had kids, your kids are genetically siblings, not cousins.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Cousins whose parents are identical, twins, share 25% of their DNA instead of the usual 12.5. While full siblings share 50% of their DNA, half siblings share 25%. Children of identical twins are legally cousins. They are genetically the equivalent of half siblings.
Wow.
That's an oddity. Thought
Yeah.
you might want to know.
That's very, I never thought about that. That's very interesting. I don't know if anyone out there has heard of Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida.
Yeah, love it.
I know. I heard about this also probably in the 80s. When I heard about it, I was just like, oh, this guy's the coolest. But he has a sad story. So I forget which country he's from.
Isn't it like Hungary or something like that?
Yeah, he's like Eastern Europe or Ed Leeds Scallon. It's very hard to say his last name. The guy that built Coral Castle, his name's Ed. Ed, who made Coral Castle, made it because he had really a sad experience in his life. And he was about to get married. His bride-to-be left him at the altar. She changed her mind. And he was very devastated by this. Instead of trying to get her back, which maybe he did, but he took all that energy into dedicating almost like a shrine to her. And so he was very kind of like to himself. And so no one knew what he was up to. But basically, I think at night, or at least isolated times, he was finding like, is it limestone or whatever it is that's in Florida, or it's made out of coral, but it's older. And he'd cut slabs, and these slabs weighed tons. And this guy didn't use a truck. He didn't use a crane. He didn't use any machinery. He did everything by hand. And then he would drag it all back to this location, and he started building all these, like, I don't know, just, it doesn't look like a castle. It has,
So it's called Coral Castle, but it doesn't look like a castle.
No, it's not like it's a house.
He didn't live there?
I don't know where he lived. Maybe he lived there. Unlucky in love, Ed Leedskallen went about his life quietly and sadly while building the most peculiar home on the edge of the Everglades. It was going to be a Valentine to the woman who had jilted him. And who knows, maybe she would hear about his grand monument to her and come back to him. She would say, I am so sorry for hurting you, and they'd marry and have many children. So Florida's eccentric genius stood a few inches taller than 5 feet.
Wow.
So he's small, and he's doing all this on his own.
Little guy.
He weighed about 100 pounds. Starting in about 1920, he began cutting huge blocks of stone from Florida's hardest ground, the oolitic layer of limestone, fossil and coral just under the Everglades topsoil. From the massive rocks he sculpted furniture, a solar system, a telescope, and even table shaped like a heart. Then he moved them into place. A few sculptured weighed 20 tons or more by himself. He moved 20 tons. Now, I drive school bus. They weigh 14.5 tons.
A school bus?
Yeah,
Okay.
like 30,000 pounds or something. So this is a lot more than that, and that's a pretty heavy thing.
You have to wonder how he did this.
Secretive, he did his heaviest lifting after dark when witnesses were unlikely to be present. It was after dark. Okay, his powerless tools included levers, block and tackle, winches, rock saws, sledgehammers, and homemade cranes he built out of pine trees and chains.
Yeah, that's what I figured was winches.
Yeah, you can move a lot.
Is it wenches or winches?
Winch.
So he
Winch.
didn't have a whole...
He didn't have
a posse of wenches helping
No.
him?
To those who thought moving stones single-handedly, even with tools, was impossible, he could quote Archimedes, "Give me a fulcrum and a lever and I can move the earth." If those words failed to impress, Ed explained that he had also discovered the secrets of the pyramids.
Oh, I believe that. Too bad Ed isn't around nowadays.
No, he died, and then he died without anyone going to his funeral. It was like he really...
Sad.
Yeah, he lived a lonely life, but what he did was incredible. And no one really, I don't know if anyone's tried to do what he did. I know there was a guy I had seen on YouTube who was like a stonemason, and he showed how you could move heavy things. And it was interesting because he had basically a lever, which was a big plank, like a 2x4 almost looking thing. Like if he was trying to lift something big, he would use something like a small stone to be the pivot point. He could maneuver that thing anywhere. It was huge. Yeah.
There's that. But I also heard a theory from an interview on somebody that studied this guy and studied Coral Castle. And he believed that where he built this castle was on ley lines. So he was working with energies.
That could be. I don't know. I've never worked with energies on that level.
I work with energies all the time. I built this house in a day. I just need a sledgehammer.
And aliens.
An army of wenches. Did you know that the majority of people in Iceland believe in elves?
Yes, I heard about that.
In 2007, University of Iceland survey found that 62% of Icelanders believe in real-life elves. In fact, in 2014, protesters claimed a proposed highway would destroy an elf church, which to many was just a gigantic rock. Eventually, the church was moved to a safe place so that it would not be harmed, and the construction continued. Now, though the rock weighed 70 tons and required a crane or an army of wenches to move it, the preservation of places important to elves is significant to Icelanders. So to Icelanders, these elves are not tiny figures who built toys for Santa. They actually look very much like humans and can range in size. Many believe that grave misfortune will befall those who dare to build in elf territory, even though it cannot be seen, hence the church preservation. Steph, now I'm kind of wondering, those little people that you saw at the end of your bed.
Icelandic elves?
Yes.
But they were wearing... but they were wearing...
1950 sock hop clothes.
Yeah.
That...
Sorry if no one knows what we're talking about, but you'd have to go to the...
Rachel Sweeting's episode.
Yeah.
So That Happened with Rachel Sweeting.
Yeah, I saw the elves. I don't know.
Maybe they were American elves.
It could be. Maybe that they exist everywhere, but they adapt to the times. Maybe they were a little behind.
Have you heard about Zin Zui?
No.
Oh, she's also known as Lady Day and was the Marquis of Day.
What's a marquis?
You're asking me questions that I have no idea. But she was from the Western Han Dynasty in ancient China, and her tomb was found 2,000 years after her death inside of a hill in China, with hundreds of valuable artifacts and documents alongside her body. What surprised everyone, however, was how incredibly well-preserved her body was thousands of years after her death.
Wow.
Lady Day was found with all of her organs and blood vessels intact.
What?
Yes, there was also a small amount of type A blood found in her veins. And she still had hair and eyelashes.
Wow.
Scientists found seeds of melon in her stomach, which led them to believe she died during the melon season in summer. And this also meant she died within a couple of hours of eating a melon. What surprised everyone the most was the mysterious liquid that her body was soaked in. It was mildly acidic and had some magnesium in it, and was probably what helped to preserve her body. To this day, scientists still don't know what kind of liquid it was.
That's really weird, and it's amazing that it's so old.
Did you also know that scientists recently, as of 2020, found that there has been a universal drop in human body temperature?
No, I didn't know that. That's weird.
Well, you know, I'm going to say something very weird that I ran, I'm talking like my whole life, at 99.1 or 99.9, my temperature always. They would always say, oh, it's like you have a low-grade fever.
Wow.
When I'd go in and get checked my whole life. Then my doctor said, you know, some people just run differently temperature-wise, and that's your base. But since this pandemic started, and since I've been getting temperature checked,
Yeah.
and I'm not just talking like the little laser that hits your head, I'm talking under the tongue. I've dropped to 97 point something. What's your baseline temp?
It's usually lower than
98.6.
Yeah, but not much lower. It's usually like 98.2. Sometimes it's been 97.
So have you noticed a drop in your temperature?
Yeah, no, I used to be normal for the most part. I didn't have a high reading. But there's times where I've had like a 99 point something, didn't feel sick at all. I was like, wow, why am I so hot, you know? But
Yeah. Well, according to the recent study by the University in California, the average human body temperature is falling globally. In the UK, for example, the normal body temperature is now 97.9. In a study in Palo Alto, California, they found that American bodies run at around 97.5.
maybe we're balancing out the global warming.
I'm wondering.
We have to lower our temperature so that we don't overheat the earth, especially those women going through menopause.
They're saying this isn't just a first world problem, so it's not just Western countries that are experiencing this. This is actually happening all over the world. Scientists just don't know, but there's an educated guess that there's something that changed in the human physiology. And one theory, we're experiencing fewer infections these days. We all undoubtedly, an infection will raise the body's temperature, resulting in a fever. That doesn't make sense. How are we experiencing fewer infections?
I know we're in a pandemic. I don't know. I feel like we have so many more weird problems, like with autoimmune diseases and stuff that has been increasing over the years.
They really don't know. And it's not cold air either. They don't know why this is happening, but they're saying, don't worry, there's no need for alarm, even though your body temperature is dropping rapidly.
I wonder if animal body temperature is dropping. Theirs is different than ours. They don't have the same reading as we do, but...
That is a good question.
Have you ever heard of Eternal Flame Waterfall?
Well, that sounds familiar.
I think it's in Buffalo, New York, which I'd never heard of this until we were looking up oddities.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a beautiful waterfall. It's more of like, it's odd in a way because there's a flame that exists in the waterfall.
Okay.
And it's because there is natural gas that's coming out of there. And they said that even though there's water there, it doesn't put it out. Let me see if I can show you a picture so you can see what it looks like. So the flame doesn't go out.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like a little grotto.
It does look like a little grotto with a little campfire inside.
Yeah, it's like a campfire and there's water cascading over it. And they said the flame will actually go out, but then immediately light back up on its own.
Wow.
So the fire must be deeper.
Within the earth, maybe there's some sort of natural gas or oil that it's running on.
Yeah. And it's almost like that town in Pennsylvania that's on fire.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I don't know why anyone would want to be near that place, but but I think it's really cool. I'm like, wow, it seems like a very beautiful, mystical place, just naturally.
Have you heard of spook lights?
No.
This may be a phenomenon related to ball lightning. Have you heard of ball lightning?
Yes, I've seen that actually.
But nobody really knows, actually, if it's related or not. But spook lights are reported around the world. The most famous, perhaps, are the Marfa lights, and that's seen near Marfa in western Texas. The lights appear almost nightly and can be seen at a distance from the Highway 90. Yet, when investigators try to approach the lights, nothing's there. The other spook lights include the Tri-State Spook Light near the borders of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, the Brown Mountain Lights near North Carolina, the Gurdon Light near Gurdon, Arkansas, the Cemetery Lights off Silver Cliff, Colorado, the Hebron Light in Maryland, the Hornet Spook Light in Southwest Missouri, and the Peakland Spook Lights in Britain. There are many unproven theories, of course, including alien activity, mirages, ghosts, usually headless railroad workers, and ball lightning induced by tectonic stresses and rocks. Never heard of the spook lights.
I don't know. Do you have to see them during the day or do you only see them at nighttime?
I would think you would only see them at night.
Have you ever heard the mystery of Death Valley's moving stones?
No.
So, out in Death Valley, the temperatures can reach like 120 degrees.
Yep.
So, people were noticing that they would see these stones that were just out in the desert naturally. And it's very sandy there. There's nothing that grows there, really. There would be a trail behind the stone.
Okay.
You can kind of see it. This is a video still, but like...
Okay.
And they were trying to figure out how these stones are moving. No one's out there,
And it's flat. It's not like it's a hill, right?
Yeah, it's flat. And there's a lot of them. And they just seem to move. And they thought, is it high winds blowing?
How can you... Yeah,
I know. I don't think so.
Okay.
It gets really cold out there at night.
Right.
So that it's the
expansion
stones,
and contraction that's causing...
And slowly they're kind of inching their way across, but they can't really prove it,
Right.
It's just very strange.
I don't know. Wouldn't that be the case with every rock and pebble?
I think so, but they do experience extreme heat and then extreme cold. But
I mean, I know wood does that. When you put in a wood flooring, you have to leave a little gap so that in the summer it expands and in the winter when it contracts. I don't know about a stone doing that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know how much a stone can expand and contract. No. I know when they make tiles, they have to have the gaps in the tiles.
How about weird clouds? Clouds are fluffy, benign masses of vapor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a clear September sky in France in 1814, a small white spherical cloud appeared. It floated motionless for a while before beginning to spin and head quickly southward. Witnesses reported the deafening rumble noises that thundered from the cloud, and then it suddenly exploded in a shower of rocks and stones.
What the heck?
Then the cloud just slowly faded away. And that's just one case of the extremely rare and highly unusual behavior from clouds. The other documented reports told of clouds that move against the wind. Clouds that rain insects or carry peculiar shadows. And there's even story of a man from Oyster Bay, Long Island, who was attacked by a spitting cloud. It's difficult to come up with any kind of rational explanations for these tales.
That's weird. Well, that's like the people who saw the city in the clouds over China.
Yeah. That seems to me more like laser projection type stuff.
You think so? Yeah, probably.
Like one of those experiments that they did, probably.
I think so. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That seems more logical.
I could see China doing that. There's fish that's fallen from the sky. We've heard that, probably.
Yeah.
I had that happen on my lawn. I was mowing the lawn and a fish just dropped out of nowhere.
What? Do you think it was
It was a seagull.
Seagull?
And it had a fish and it was flying over and it dropped it.
I bet you he was disappointed.
I bet you he was. He grabbed it right from the river. So what do you think of all these oddities?
I love it.
Do you know what my favorite oddity was?
What?
The homeless man that wanted to throw kush balls at you and eat a pizza.
Yeah, and I left out that he wanted us to oil ourselves up, too.
Oh, that's so hot.
The sky was so out there.
I wonder what kind of pizza it was.
I bet you it was Little Caesars.
$5 pizza. Hot and fresh.
It was hot. Yeah, and it was left in the cemetery mausoleum so I could eat it later.
Oh, my Lord. Oh. That's my favorite one, Steph, out of all of them. Well, folks, there you have it. If you ever get invited to a mausoleum by a homeless man who wants to oil you up and throw kush balls at you, maybe it's something you should do and document, as it is an oddity. So I want to thank you, my dear listeners. Remember, you can get a hold of us at tothespiritpod@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about our podcast. Rate us and review us. And until next time.
To the Spirit
Podcast.
Supernatural Science.
Aliens.
Ghost.
Psychic.
Mystic.
Spirits.
Divine source.
Heaven. The dead. It's magic.